Hello, Thomas, Wilderness Life Day 6. I have just hiked up to the camp and today I actually brought some wood with me, so I'm gonna make a fire out here. It is about -2 degrees and it has been a little bit snowfall. And I'm gonna make a fire, and we have prepared a fireplace here before. And as you can see, I have digged down to the ground because if I make a fire on top of the snow, of course, first of all it's gonna melt the snow under it, and the moist is gonna destroy my fire. So now I have dig down completely, and even though I have done that, the ground is still gonna be moist when that's thaws up. So I will make a little floor under it to prevent the moist to drag up in the fire. Well, today's episode is going to be about hypothermia. But before I start talking about that, I will make a fire so I can make sure that I don't get hypothermia. No, but it's nicer to have a fire. Another episode we're gonna cover fire. We often talk about shore fire when we talk about bushcraft and what that is and what is in my shore fire kit. Today I have first I have made the floor. I'm just making a little floor today because I'm just making a little fire, but I have a little cotton ball that I have prepared from home, always carrying with me, and then I have a little dry tinder. I have prepared some smaller sticks, and I have some chopped birch wood. And by the way, the bubble wrap there is not for the fire, it is for my insulation when I sit down. Anyway, we teach a saying that is the 5 P's, which means that proper preparation prevents poor performance. And that means that you always are prepared for the circumstances that you are out to. And yeah, it's always important to be prepared, so it's easier to deal with everything that can hit you out there. Okay, the fire is up and running, so I will just rig the camera so we can get into the hypothermia. Today we're going to talk about hypothermia, and well, first of all, what is hypothermia? Hypothermia is when your body loses heat faster than it can generate heat. We do have a normal core body temperature of 37 degrees Celsius. And when you get into the state that you are losing, that temperature goes down, you are getting into the hypothermia state. Hypothermia has 4 stages, and it ranges from mild to severe, and it will eventually lead to death if it is not treated. The best thing, of course, is to avoid it than to treat it. And when you have started to become hypothermic, it will be like a slide. It will just keep on going. You will be colder and colder. Your core temperature will be colder and colder, and yeah, it needs to be stopped. When you get hypothermia, your blood will concentrate on your core and will try to protect your important organs that you have, your heart, your lungs, liver, and so on. And that means that it will shut down the blood circulations down to your external parts like your feet and your hands. There is a very simple test you can do to see if you are in the risk of getting hypothermia or if you are in the mild stage, and that is a simple dexterol test. You take your thumb and your pinky and do this simple movement. If you cannot do that, then you better do something about that, and fast. That get out of the element that is causing it. Put on an extra layer of clothes, or eat or drink something, warm up at the fire, or crawl into a sleeping bag, and yeah, get out of the elements and start treating it as soon as possible. So the 4 stages of hypothermia is ranging from mild to severe. The first stage of hypothermia is ranging from about 36.5 to 35 degrees Celsius, when your body core temperature have gone down from 37. And the symptoms for this stage is you have shivering. Your body tries to reheat itself, so that's the muscle working to try to build up energy and heat up. You can lose coordination, you can be very clumsy, like drop things and stumble and fall, for example, and get mood changes, can lose concentration. The second stage of hypothermia is ranging from about 35 to 32 degrees. The symptoms here will be wild shivering, uncontrolled shivering. You cannot stop it, it just goes. Your judgment will be weakened or affected. You get hard to talk, and mumbling. The third stage of hypothermia, ranging from about 32 to 30 degrees Celsius. At this stage your shivering will stop, because your body will not be able to reheat itself anymore. Your pulse and respiration will get faint, and you will not be able to speak, and your skin can become blue. The fourth stage, ranging from about 30 to 25 degrees Celsius, and at this time you are unconscious, and your pulse and respiration will be very faint. If you have a friend in your party that has this stage, you might not be able to feel his pulse. The person might be looking dead, but there is a saying that you ain't dead by hypothermia before you are warm and dead, which means that you have rewarmed the person and there is still no pulse and respiration. The lowest temperature someone has been resuscitated from is recorded at 13.7 degrees. So, at that stage you will not feel any respiration or any pulse, but the person was still alive. So you are not dead by hypothermia before you are warm and dead. In the severe stage of hypothermia, it is you are unconscious, and there is no way to safely cure that out in the bush, in the wilderness. So of course that is evac. From mild to medium, you can treat it, and you can still function and still continue what you're doing when you have regained your core temperature. But from the severe stage, it is evac ASAP, of course, and at that point you are also very sensitive for movement. So even moving a person on a stretcher can be life-threatening for the heart, cardiac arrest. Out here in the bush there is two main categories that will cause hypothermia. It is exposure or immersion. Exposure to cold, wet and wind, and immersion if you, for example, fall through the ice into the water, or fall into a cold water. And actually the highest ratio of hypothermia occurs between 6 and 6, from plus 6 degrees Celsius to minus 6 degrees Celsius, because that's when you are have the biggest risk of having 1, 2, 3 of the elements, wet, cold and wind. Then we have the heat loss sources. There are 5 of them. You have conduction, convection, radiation, evaporation and respiration. Respiration is the smallest one, and that's also the hardest one to do something about, because that is simply you breathing out your warm air and exhaling warm air, inhaling cold air. Of course you can use some kind of protection for your mouth and nose, so you will will heat up the air a little bit before it hits your lungs and the system. But other than that, it's not much you can do, because you still need to breathe, right? Then you have radiation, which is your body radiating heat from its open surface. Uncovered surfaces, like you not wearing a hat, that's a main heat loss source. You don't wearing gloves, and that is avoided by wearing a hat, wearing gloves, wearing a scarf or a buff or whatever, a balaclava. Make sure that you cover all your parts so you don't have the radiation effect, because actually it from when it's below 28 degrees Celsius you are in the risk of losing heat from your body out to, because your core temperature is 37 and it will try to rewarm. So from 28 degrees Celsius and below you have the risk to lose heat if you're not protected by clothes. And then you have evaporation. Evaporation is simply you are getting sweat, you're building up moist in your clothes, and your body will try to dry that, and you will lose heat through evaporation. If you have been walking in warm shoes and warm socks, and then you take your shoes off, you can see the steam coming out of there if it's cold in there. That is evaporation. Then you have conduction, and conduction is when you are touching something that is colder than yourself. When you're out here in the bush winter time, everything you find around you here will be colder than yourself. So wear insulation, wear gloves. If you, for example, gonna use a snow shuffle and shuffle around your camp, put on gloves. If you have, for example, an aluminium shuffle, that leads heat very fast, so you will lose heat very, very fast from it. Another thing of conduction is I'm sitting on a stone here. You saw the bubble wrap I had. That is simply to insulate me from the cold surface. And the same thing, I'm sleeping in a tent. Under me, of course, it's snow and ice, and then I have the very thin tent floor that doesn't do anything for insulation. And then I have a thin pea foam laying under it, on top of it, and on top of that 2 reindeer skins. So that will be protecting me from the conduction from the cold ground. And then you have convection, and convection is the warm air that is around your body is moved away, for example, by the wind or not wearing clothes, so you have the convection. One of the main weapons that we have to fight the hypothermia risk is, of course, our clothing and how we dress. And we out here we use the layer on layer principle, which means that you are using several layers of clothing. You can have I use sometimes, it depends on what I'm out to do, I use somewhere between 3 to 4 layers. And in the bottom I have a base layer that is either out of wool or synthetic materials. And that layer should be removing moist from your body, away from your body. Cotton is another material, but that is not recommended because the fibers in cotton will not be able to warm you at any means if they get moist and wet, and they will not transport the moist away from your body. It will actually isolate the body, the moist around your body, and keep cooling you down. So cotton kills. Wool is my favorite because wool will even keep you warm even if it gets moist to some degree or wet to some degree. And then on top of that I can wear another base layer, a thicker one for wool for example. I can wear a thin base layer of 200 grams merino wool, and on top of that 400 grams merino wool. And then comes the third thermal layer if I'm using 4, and that is a thick sweater, for example, a thick woolen sweater. And then on top of that your shell layer, and your shell layer should be water and wind protecting. Protect your body from the wet and from wind. The advantage of this layering on layering, of course, air is a very good insulator, and you will actually trap air, warm up the air and trap it between the layers, so that will be a very good insulation. And also when you're out, it's important not to build up sweat, and if you're using layer on layer it's easy to control how much if you're using layer on layer, you can remove a layer when you're getting warm, so you not build up sweat. And then there is some other things that will help prevent yourself from hypothermia, and that is of course that you eat well and enough, because it is your metabolism that will keep your core temperature, to keep reheating you. And that's why I sometimes, when I sleep out when it's very cold, I eat something like bacon or something very fatty before I go to bed, get my metabolism going, and it will keep me going through the night. And of course it is important to drink a lot, because you will dehydrate as much even though it's -30 as it's when it's +30, because every breath you take you will lose hydration. And of course alcohol is not a good thing to drink, because what happens when you're getting in the hypothermia stages is that your blood will focus on your core and it will subtract from your external parts. And if you drink alcohol, it will actually open the ventricle, it will open your vessels and shoot the blood around your whole body. It will go out in the hands, become cold, and instead of doing the job to protect the core temperature. There is actually a funny story, a funny joke, saying that there is 2 fishermen that is out on the ice fishing, and the one guy asks the other, "Are you freezing?" And he replies, "Yes please," because he wants to get that drink. But not recommended. Everybody is prone to get hypothermia, but you can have some, well, if you're sick you may be more prone to it, and younger people and older people are as well more prone to hypothermia. Older people, because their metabolism is lowering by the age, so they will not be able to reheat themselves as effective as a mid-age person. And small babies, younger children, small children are also more prone to get hypothermic, because they have a bigger body surface compared to their mass. That means that they have actually carrying around less heat within them compared to their surface. So when you are out with young people and older people, you need to be extra observant. Anyway, that covers about the basics about hypothermia. The general rule is avoid it, use the right clothes, get out of the elements, and remember the simple test. If you cannot do this, then you need to take care of it. And actually many people who die of hypothermia, they will die because they cannot use their hands. They cannot light that match, or they cannot use their hands to get out of the well, get the chain stopped. In another episode we will cover treatment of hypothermia, and we will do a couple of these kind of information shows, or whatever you would call it. It is a completely quiet evening. I often just come out here with or without my headlight, or turn it off, and just stand here in the dark, quiet. Good morning. It completes day 6, Saturday the 13th of December. I have slept a bit longer today. It's about 8 o'clock now, and the 13th of December here, it is Lucia. So tonight I will make a little cozy Lucia happening here. As you can see, I have my thicker sweater on. I was cold when I went into the sleeping bag yesterday, and my sleeping bag was so cold. So I was thinking that let's keep the thick sweater on until I get warm, and then I take it off. But that never happened. It was perfect temperature. I have not been cold since I succeeded to heat up the sleeping bag. I am about to hike back to the lodge, and as you can see, hard to see, but we do have pretty much snow, and I'm hiking a different routes back. I haven't hiked this path for last week, so it is not tramped down. The snow is not tramped down. And the reason why I'm hiking this way is because I actually want to see if it might be possible to take this trail up to the camp tonight with our snowmobile.